So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patricia Patricio, and on behalf of the Health Cluster Portugal, I would like to welcome you to this webinar of the JoinHealth Spring Series on Early Health Technology Assessment. These webinars are a collaborative initiative from the Health Cluster Portugal and the EIT Health that aim to promote the dissemination of knowledge and the network in an informed environment. We have quite a busy schedule today with 4 speakers who will present different approaches to the topic of early health technology assessment. And I would like to welcome the speakers of this session. I will just share my screen to go through the agenda. And we'll have Dr. Thomas Babel from the EIT Health will give us an overview about the STARS Early Health Technology Assessment Initiative. And we'll have then 2 speakers, Dr. Nimrod Lav, from the CEO of GIN Tools, who will present the case study of the company. And we'll have Professor Dr. Zoltan Kalo from Sirion, who will approach the technology assessment topic in more detail. And last but not least, we'll have João Quintas from IPN, who will present the ROSE project, which made use of early technology assessment methods. So thank you so much, all of you, for accepting our invitation for being here today. Just to let you know that after each presentation, we'll have time for questions from the audience. So I'll invite you all to drop your questions in the Q&A box. And before we move on with the agenda, just a brief note on the presentation slides. The presentation slides will be available upon request. So after the end of this webinar, we'll have a satisfaction survey. So you can add your email address there if you want to receive these presentations. And also the recording of the session will soon be available on YouTube channel of the Health Cluster Portugal. Moving to the first presentation of this afternoon, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Thomas Babel, who is a healthcare expert, a medical and market access manager at EIT Health. Prior to that, he has worked in management roles in healthcare, pharma, and also in the management consulting sector. So thank you, and I pass the word now to Dr. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Welcome, everyone. And I'm here to tell you that if you are serious about the health innovation, then early health technology assessment is a game changer. And here is my conversion story. I'm a medical doctor with a PhD in neuroscience, and as Patricia mentioned, I worked as a management consultant. So I have a broad understanding of medical and business aspects of healthcare industry. My first encounter with the HTA happened at AstraZeneca, where I was responsible for pricing and reimbursement function as a director at the local franchise. And actually, we were in a pricing war with the health payer, and we needed to defend some product lines against cost containment measures. The only argument that worked was an on-the-market HTA analysis. Since then, I'm totally into that methodology. And as I joined to EIT InnoSess community, I realized that we need a clear framework to evaluate project ideas, preferably before anyone invests any resources in any project. The key question here, I think, does it first to pursue this proposal? And let's reframe this question. Does this idea generate enough differential benefit to justify cost? And if you ask that way, then this is the early health technology all about. So we decided to spread the word. We started a complex program, including webinar, workshop, and a pilot EHTA project. And today's presentation is gonna cover the essence of these exercises. And I hope you are going to find it useful. And basically, why should you listen? So I think if you are familiar with the HTA, Early Health Technology Assessment, you'll be more confident in filtering out ideas, more convinced about your investment decision, and you will call in a Zoom meeting. At least I hope so. So you need to know that early health technology assessment is a fairly new discipline, and it started to take off like 5 years ago, and growing fast, like 15% more papers annually. And please don't mix it with the HTA, and I hope Professor Caro will cover it. So let me introduce Professor Caro, who is one of the leading experts and worshiper about the early health technology assessment, and Mr. Nimrod Lev, who is the founding CEO of GeneTools, and he's going to share his experience with a real HTA project. So I give the floor to Nimrod.
Thank you very much, Kamash. Share my screen. Can you see the Trisha? I cannot share the screen. Okay.
It should be able to.
Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing it already.
Great. Okay, so my name is Nimrod Lev. I'm the co-founder of JoinTools, an Israeli startup designing and dealing with gynecology diagnostic systems. JoinTools was pioneered by Professor Achinoam Lev Sagi, my younger sister, who is a gynecologist that faced an interesting issue during her work. A lot of patients with vaginitis who came to her clinic to consult her as an expert. And she found out that a lot of them were already diagnosed wrongly in previous sessions. Together with Manny, her husband, my brother-in-law, we started JoinTools a couple of years ago, and we joined Zohar, Adrian, and lately Yardena to the team. What we're doing, vaginitis is an inflammation of the vagina presenting with discharge, itch, pain, sometimes malodor. It is the main reason for gynecology clinic visits. About 1/3 of total clinic visits are due to vaginitis. It sums to tens of millions of women in North America and Europe alone. About 80% of women will experience at least one episode of vaginitis during their lifetime, and about 5% experience more than 4 episodes each year. Now, vaginitis is a general name to 7 different conditions, both infectious and non-infectious, which makes it hard to diagnose during first clinic visits. Why is it so hard to diagnose? Because infectious conditions can be diagnosed in laboratory. Non-infectious conditions, which are about 1/3, and in certain ages more than that, can be diagnosed only through microscopy by an expert physician who knows what to look for. Since microscopy is a lost art already, and laboratories faces a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of physicians, a lot of gynecologists just tend to guess, which makes it a bad guess because about 50% of first clinic visits end with wrong diagnosis, which leads to a vicious cycle of consuming wrong medication, repeated visits, health complications, huge suffering to patients, and huge unnecessary expenses to payers. So we invented Genie. Genie is the first and only in-clinic point-of-care multi-causal, cost-effective diagnostic system that enables physician to diagnose the reason from a single swab. How does it work? We have 4 elements. We have a disposable sampler. The physician takes a vaginal sample and pulls the brush through the cassette. Put the cassette in this cradle, which goes out, and after waving in front of the machine, the cradle goes in while scanning tens of color and microscopic pictures. These images, together with some information that the physician takes into the user interface, goes to the cloud, processed immediately and automatically, and a correct diagnosis sent back to the physician within seconds. The whole process from start to end takes about 5 minutes. A huge relief to both physician and patients. Now, the benefits for the physicians and the patients are clear, but there are benefits also to the payers, to the organizations, mainly the cost reduction. We are claiming that we're going to reduce the cost per test, reduce the visit, the repeated visits, so saving cost to the payers, and reduce the wrong treatment, the payment for the medications, the payment for health complications treatment, and this is big cost reduction. We started thinking about first market. So of course, the Israeli market where we live and speak is one of it. After thorough analysis in Europe, understanding better the reimbursement structure, we decided that Switzerland will be another market that we develop in parallel. And of course, we're looking at America, the United States, which is the largest health economy in the world. And then realizing that these are the 3 first spots we're landing in, we decided to propose a business model where we are selling our consumables in $50 to a dealer. The dealer do their own markup, about 100%, ask the consumers or the clinics to pay $100, and these are reimbursed for $150. So this was a very nice assumption, but then we need to make clear that it works. And this is actually the billion-dollar question. What is the right price and how much can we ask for? Are we right in our assumptions? With our good luck, we registered to a program, applied for some guidance, and we forgot about it. And suddenly in December 2020, I'm getting this letter telling me a very joyful announcement that we were selected, we won, and we will be working with Professor Kalo and his team on this health economics analysis. The goals were to set the pricing right and justify it, and to assess the added value of Genie. I have to say that the mission is accomplished with the great, fantastic help of Professor Kalo and his team. And that's about it. So this is our story till now. Indeed, with these findings, we are continuing to the market. We show it to potential customers and to health authorities. to payers, and it makes a lot of sense to them to see the clinical validation, and the financial validation as well. That's it. So if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer it now.
I'm not sure if there are any questions from the audience. We have a couple of minutes if you want to ask.
What we can also do, Patricia, is that after my presentation, Nimrod and I can talk more about this, because certainly that was a nice introduction, but we can maybe tell more about the technical details.
Okay,
What do you think?
Makes perfect sense to me. So if you want to go further with your presentation now, and we leave the questions for after your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for the invitation. And in my overview, I will talk about the principles of early phase technology assessment of medical devices and diagnostic technologies. And let me start with problems. And the typical problem, well, it's interesting that I still see it even for pharmaceuticals, but definitely see it for medical devices and digital health technologies. When healthcare innovators reach the marketplace, they face with objections from payers. And the typical sentence I hear, payers do not understand and acknowledge the importance of our fantastic new technology. And I believe it's part of not doing the homework. It's an indicator that the assumptions about unmet medical need, the value propositions, the pricing rationale, or the payment models were not validated. And the expectations are not determined explicitly on what is the benefit of the technology, and not the business opportunities in different indications were selected based on like internal focus and not looking outside where are the business opportunities. So in general, I see this, and you know, it's not blaming anyone. It's just a very typical problem of healthcare innovators that they have the fantastic technical knowledge to complete the R&D process without strong business plan for commercialization. Let me start from the end, okay? My statement is that justification of resource allocation decisions is increasingly needed, especially related to the reimbursement or the purchasing of new technologies from scarce public health resources. So certainly the first step of giving away public money for health technologies is to understand how much is the health gain, and this is what evidence-based medicine or comparative effectiveness research does. And even if we select the health technologies which are beneficial, which bring health gain to the patient, even the richest country of the world doesn't have sufficient resources to cover everything. So first we have to choose what brings health gain to patients, and then second, we have to make the difficult choice what not to buy, because societies cannot provide all effective health technologies to everyone from public resources. We need to have selection for the cost-effective and affordable technologies, and that's what health technology assessment does. So health technology assessment in many countries have become a mandatory criteria for market access, and originally started for pharmaceuticals, but it's in many countries already mandatory for medical devices and digital health technologies. So it's very useful tool for innovators in the business creation phase. Actually, it's that the phase where you would like to launch your product and you need a value dossier because healthcare payers will make judgment on the value of your health technology based on this value dossier. And certainly this can be a useful tool to convince hospitals if you would like to sell your products through hospitals and so on and so on. So HTA is already a well-established discipline. The first country which said that we are not rich enough to buy everything from scarce public resources was Australia in 1991. So 30 years ago, when they started with pharmaceuticals and they extended to non-pharmaceutical technologies. But it's not enough to consider HTA only at the phase of market access, only when launching the new technologies. We believe that the process should start much earlier. So that's what early HTA does in the innovation phase, in the phase where we need to make difficult choices on where to go, what type of studies we need to conduct, how we should prepare, what is the assumption on the price of the new technology. So early HTA for the innovation phase is a very useful tool to guide the innovators how to spend the scarce resources, scarce R&D resources. So the public resources for healthcare are limited and everyone knows about it, but even research budgets are also limited. And that's why evidence-informed decisions are needed. Also, go, no-go decisions, which patient population we should choose, or it's needed for business development decisions, in licensing or out licensing decisions, or even obtaining funding for the development process, which can be public funds like EIT Health or venture capital funds. And even EIT Health put more and more emphasis on the justification of the business opportunity, pricing assumptions, and so on and so on. So I will talk a little bit more about the early phase technology assessment. So the first step of the early phase assessment is to have some kind of clarity on how we would like to sell the product if the development phase is successful. So do we want healthcare payers to cover it? Should it be on the reimbursement list? Or our payment model is to sell it directly to healthcare providers like hospitals, outpatient clinics, or family practitioners? Or do we want patients to pay directly for a digital application, or should it be part of the mobile applications where patients don't need to pay directly if they allow adverts when using these free digital apps? This is also an important payment model. Or do we want to sell it to another health technology manufacturer? For example, we can tell someone that if you use this digital technology, running clinical trials for you pharma company would be much easier. So it is possible that we develop a technology for improving the R&D or the manufacturing process of other health technology manufacturers. Or instead of commercialization of the product directly by ourselves, we would like to sell the product, an exit payment, in which we still need to explain to the financial investors how we consider the payment model for this product if they buy obviously this product. Or we can sell it to a larger business partner. So we complete the development process, and we say that we are small. We do not want to, sell it, and we sell it to a larger, I don't know, Medtronic, General Electric, Philips type of large manufacturer who can include it into their service portfolio. So we need to know, we need to have clear expectations on what is our payment model and what needs to be done in order to be successful with the payment. And in order to do it, we need to be very honest with ourselves. So many people believe that this innovation is unmatchable, but in fact, sometimes the world doesn't react the same way. So we need to be fair with judging whether what we bring to the marketplace is a disruptive innovation, changes everything, turns everything upside down. The current markets will be changed if we bring this to the marketplace, or a revolutionary innovation where actually it can be maybe a first-in-class product on an existing market. So I believe that, for example, what Nimrod had presented is a revolutionary innovation, is a fantastic new technology on an existing market. So still diagnostics will be needed, but in a much better way. So I would classify it as a revolutionary innovation. Or we can say this is a Me Too innovation. Me Too means that we are somewhat similar, which already exists, but we are slightly different, slightly better, has better safety profile. So it's an improvement of an existing product in an existing market. Or we are not a novel technology. We are just the same as another technology, but maybe we are cheaper. Okay, so this means that no benefit except the discount price. So the degree of innovation and actually having fair judgment on the degree of innovation is an important step in understanding what could be the fair price for our technology. And the other thing is that in order to do this, we need to make a quantitative judgment on so-called target product profile. So target product profile outlines the expected profile or characteristic of the new technology that is aimed at a particular disease or diseases. So target product profile is like it gives us direction, what type of studies we should do. So it explains that our aim is to be 20% better and at least as safe as the current medical technology. So the target product profile always gives you the pros and cons of your product in a quantifiable manner. Obviously, at this stage, in an early phase of the development process, it's still just an expectation without evidence behind. But if you set up your target product profile, you know what type of studies you need to conduct, what type of evidence you need to generate. So the target product profile tells you what type of clinical trials you need to do in order to be convincing for healthcare payers and regulators. So what type of benefits are appreciated by healthcare payers? Obviously, health gain is an important component, but improved value in use, like patient experience is better, hence the adherence or compliance of patients with a chronic medical therapy will be much better. That actually is a very good value proposition. Or the burden of healthcare professionals is much better. So instead of a very complicated IV therapy, it's very easy for healthcare professionals or safe to administer something. Or you can offer something to those patients who are living in remote geographical areas. So they don't need to come to a hospital. That is always like improved value in use. Obviously, payers very much appreciate if someone can show them cost savings, direct healthcare costs, or sometimes they consider direct costs of households or indirect costs, like less travel time or less hassle of using the technology. And then health system benefits. It's a very easy to refer back to the current COVID pandemic. Like a big news yesterday is that the Pfizer vaccine don't need to be kept at -80 degrees. So it should be kept, it can be kept from now on in a normal refrigerator. This is fantastic news. And it increases the value of the product, or supply reliability, or vertical integration to provide chain. So these are all benefits for the healthcare systems that healthcare payers appreciate. And finally, societal benefits. Again, after the COVID pandemic, I don't need to explain too much how important it is to ensure the productivity of small businesses and business continuity. So if someone can guarantee that, that would be a great benefit for healthcare payers. So you need to think about what is your value proposition along these categories, and you need to put together. You need to justify the price of your technology along these value propositions. So the first kind of topic for today, which is like a short topic, and I do not want to go into the details because I can talk about this, and I have exercises about this for long hours, but I just wanted to give you a kind of short explanation, is how to determine the value-based price in your target patient population. And what is a typical problem of healthcare innovators related to strategic pricing? The most typical problem is to consider cost plus pricing. So these are my costs, this is my profit, that's going to be the price. To be honest with you, that's very easy to calculate, but it's an indicator of ignorance because you consider what would be the good price for yourself and not would be the good price for the market. It's an internal focus, not paying attention to the needs of your key customers. You don't need to, consider quantifiable product promise. So you don't make an effort to develop a target product profile, and practically you do not consider a value proposition for healthcare payers. And just imagine that what cost plus pricing does. So if you spend more on R&D or manufacturing, it justifies higher prices. So if you are more inefficient, it indicates the need for higher prices. So practically cost plus pricing is a reward for inefficiency of R&D and manufacturing, which makes absolutely no sense. Or the opposite, just imagine that you would be happy with a price of, I don't know, 100 euros. But what if public players would be willing to pay 500 euros for you? If you can justify that at 500 euros, your product is cost effective, you leave money on the table, okay? So cost plus pricing is an easy solution, but actually it's an indicator of ignorance. So some innovators actually contact HTA professionals, has early technology assessment, and they tell them that, what would be the value-based price? Please tell us. So my first question is then, what is your quantifiable product promise? In other words, what is your target profile? And the answer is, I don't know. So if you don't know what is your product promise, how I can tell you what is the justifiable price for you? And then the response is, okay, so please tell us what should be our product promise. Well, I'm not as familiar with the technology as yourself, so I do not want to tell you what should be your product promise. So the innovator should think about what is the product promise. So I just tell you typical discussions I had in the past, but you have to see that it's not an easy exercise, and maybe cost plus pricing is an easy solution, but it's not the right solution. Okay, so what are the other options for strategic pricing? If you believe that your product is a disruptive innovation or revolutionary innovation, for example, what I believe that Nimrod's product is, then you have to use value-based pricing. So you have to develop an economic model, and you should increase the price until it doesn't cost effective. So how much is the maximum price at which the product is not cost effective anymore? This is the calculation of the value-based price. And if you calculate it for your major markets, you know that what can be a justifiable, reasonable pricing assumption for your product. Obviously, of course, you still need the evidence behind the product, but at least it's a fair judgment on what is the justifiable price. If your product is a me-too product, me-too means that something similar, which is already on the marketplace, then benchmark or reference pricing is the right approach. So you look at products which are very similar, and then you price very narrow. If your product is a little bit better, you can have a little bit price premium. If your product is just the same, you should think about maybe a discount price. And if your product is as good as something else, it's not better, then you can gain market share by offering a price advantage, so cost savings to healthcare payers. So if you have no innovation but you are cheaper, that actually is very much appreciated by healthcare payers. But you should have a discount price. You should have a price reduction compared to your competitors. So this is actually the way how we consider strategic pricing. And this is a very famous waterfall diagram of value-based pricing, where you still need to choose comparator. Comparator is what is the current way how patients are treated today. Okay, that's the comparator price. And if you have savings in the healthcare system, you can increase your price. If you have health gain, you can convert the health gain to incremental price premium. So healthcare systems are willing to pay for incremental health gain, and many healthcare systems are willing to pay 3 times the GDP per capita for one quality adjusted life year benefit. So this is called headroom pricing. But actually, it's a very useful tool to understand how the price justification should be made at a very early stage. Productivity gain can be also translated to price premium, and value in use improve patient adherence or better solutions for patients who are located in remote areas, rural areas. This type of value in use can be also translated to premium price. So altogether, what health economists can calculate to you, what is the justifiable price for your technology. So what is the economic value of your health technology? Let me tell you the other aspect of early phase technology assessment. Just imagine that if you are developing a new technology, you have several scenarios. You can go to this direction, you can go to that direction, or to the other direction. Or what Nimrod has also presented to you, you can choose from different markets. You know, I would start in this market or that market or another market. So there are many scenarios where you can make judgment based on what is your best feeling, or you can make judgment based on numbers, okay, based on net present value calculations. And the net present value calculation is, if you are an investor, if you, for example, negotiate with venture capitalists, they always expect you to present the expected net present value. And the expected net present value has two components. What is the present value of future sales, future revenues, and then what is the present value of costs that you need to invest in order to collect the sales revenues. And if you don't have net present value calculation, it's like driving blind. Okay, you go ahead. You don't know where to go. You don't know whether you have the return on investment. You don't have a business model. You don't have a commercialization strategy. So net present value calculation gives you the kind of discipline. So whenever you have a new idea, you can translate into numbers. So if I invest more, how much is the return on investment? That's what net present value models give you. So net present value calculation requires actionable items on what should be done and when. Okay, so it's not making the investment based on your best feelings, but making the decisions based on timings of investment and having a translation on okay, if I do it, what should be the incremental benefit, incremental return on the investment. What is very important to do is a fair judgment on the failure. So once I was running a course for a mid-size company. Actually, it was a mid-size healthcare manufacturer, and I did a kind of training course on how they should improve their in-licensing process. And previously, they didn't consider the failure rate. Okay, so their NPV calculation were always very positive, very high number. So when I saw their methodology and asked them that, do you think that you do not have failure rate in the development process? And I said, yes, we always have. So why don't you factor in the NPV calculation? Because our CEO likes very high numbers. Okay, if it's good for you, then it's fine. But NPV calculation requires a fair judgment on the failure. And in order to do the net present value calculation, you should have a fair assumption on what is the justifiable price. So the NPV calculation should be based on the previous step. What is the strategic pricing assumption? And that's why actually it's very important that in the early phase technology assessment, you do the strategic pricing first, and based on this, you adjust the net present value calculation. I've seen some bad solutions like backward calculation of NPV. So the innovators, the guys who contacted me told me that my CEO expects a $5 million net present value. So they had a model and they made the calculations accordingly to match the $5 million NPV calculation. This is bad. So certainly it's not based on, so what can I do to go ahead? This is not the right way of making the net present value calculation. Or sometimes they have mission impossible expectation from experts like me. Please develop the model for us, the NPV model, and fill in with data on behalf of us, because we don't have the data. So sorry, the model can be developed by the health economist, but the data on what to do and when and how much would be the cost of clinical trial shouldn't come from health economics. So certainly NPV calculations are useful only if they are fair. if this is done together with experts. And healthcare innovators know their technology, know the expectations of the technology, and not the health economics. So expected sales is one important component of the net present value calculation, and the expected sales always depend on the volume and the price. So the volume depends on the market size and the market share, and the price very much depends on the position. Okay, so that's why I say that when you calculate the expected value, expected revenues, you always have scenarios. Should I go for a narrower market with a higher price, or should I go for a wide market with a lower price? That's actually a big question in making business strategies, and certainly that influences the price itself. So if you go for a narrower market, you can increase the price, but you reduce the volume, and that's the trade-off you need to evaluate yourself. And when it comes to the present value of investment, you need to consider what is the present value of running clinical trials or collecting the evidence generation, in other words. What is the cost of manufacturing? And you have to be fair with sales and marketing. You know, if you have the most perfect health technology of the world, without investment into sales and marketing, you won't be successful. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, you need to have a campaign. You need to invest into selling the product itself. So you have to consider all these elements when considering the present value of your technology. And what is very important is present value. So present value of money today is higher than present value in the future. So if you are in the innovation phase, you have all the costs, but the revenues come from the faraway future. So you need to do the discounting. And what is the fair discounting rate? You need to decide yourself. But the present value calculation is very important here. So how to do the net present value calculation? Practically, it's building a kind of decision tree with a potential outcome of development scenarios with probabilities, costs, and revenues. And then you need to establish what is your target product profile, and based on your target product profile, what is your justifiable price. You need to have a probabilized success in each decision point, and then you need to make assumption on the market size and the market share, so the penetration rate in each potential outcome scenario according to your business model. And then you need to make the back calculation of the expected net present value. So the expected sales is the market size times the market share and the price, year by year, discounted, minus the development cost, minus the production cost, and minus the sales and marketing cost. And then you should be happy if the expected net present value is very positive, but you can calculate what is the internal rate of return. So what is the discount rate at which the net present value becomes zero? So this can tell you what is the kind of annual return on investment over a long-term period. And then you can also calculate how much is the payback period. So you make money after 5 years of investment. This is called payback period, 8 years. If it's 50 years, forget it, because, well, you won't make money in your life. So there are many outcome indicators. You have to understand what it means, and you have to use carefully for your decisions. So this was just a kind of introduction on the two most important components of early technology assessment: strategic pricing and NPV calculations. But And obviously, I told you the prerequisite, choosing the payment model, making fair judgment on the target product profile and value propositions, and so on and so on. And if you do it, then you won't be in a situation where at the launch of your product, after a successful development project, you complain that the payers do not understand the true value of my technology. Because if you did this exercise, if you did your homework, you won't need to complain about the ignorance of payers. I highly advocate to you that whenever you make judgment on the value, you should always have an external view. So it's not important what is the value for you. It's your baby. It's very valuable. But what is the value for your customers? What is the value for healthcare payers? In order to do it, you need to understand how the value is judged by healthcare payers. So again, it's not important how valuable your product, your dream technology for you, but it's far more important what would be the value for healthcare payers. And I don't know is the worst answer, okay? So obviously, if you don't know, it's not a problem to seek for external advice. Many healthcare innovators are fantastic scientists, but they are not experts in health economics. And many startups do not have in-house health economic expertise. So you need to find someone who can help you in that. Delaying this problem means that you delay the time when you can get reimbursement for your product and when you can really get sales revenues. So delaying this problem, delaying or ignoring this problem means that your return on investment will be much less, will be delayed, and maybe it won't be a successful product. Obviously, you have to understand that assumptions and anticipations are unavoidable. But you should know which components should be validated, for example, in clinical trials. So if you have an assumption on your target product profile, then something is obvious. You don't need to validate that in clinical trials, but certain things should be validated. So when you consider the target product profile, you shouldn't just think about the regulatory approval. Regulatory approval, by the way, for medical technologies and digital health technologies are much easier than for pharmaceuticals. But getting reimbursement, selling it to healthcare payers, hospitals is not an easy task. So that's why you should have fair assumptions and anticipations, and you need to know which components should be validated. And finally, I don't think that you should expect more from HT experts than what we are willing to invest into HT. So HT requires investment. It's not, by the way, it's not as expensive as running a clinical trial, I can tell you. So if you meet an HT expert who tells you that you should invest millions, this is not the right expert for you. But still, you need to make sure that you have a timely investment into early health technology assessment. I hope that this introduction was useful into what early phase technology assessment does, and I'm happy to answer questions. And Nimrod is also here, so he went through an exercise with us, and certainly after my presentation, it may even be more relevant what Nimrod has just said.
Thank you very much, Professor Zoltan, for this very insightful and thorough presentation. I'm sure that would be a lot more to tell about this topic, but I think it was a very nice, at least, introduction to this topic. So we'll now open for questions from the audience. Miguel Amador will help me manage this part.
Yeah, so thank you again for this amazing introduction, Zoltan, on this fields. We have a first question from Nuno Silveira that points to the dismissal of small incremental innovations, preferring in some way the authorities to look into all innovation in some way. What is your opinion regarding the using of these probably frameworks on what is incremental innovations versus disruptive innovation? Because probably it's much more easier to do this when you are proposing a 10x benefit for the patients, but you're trying to improve a 10% reduction of costs, probably in the end, maybe not so easy. Or 1%, that is already a lot in healthcare.
Absolutely. And this is a very good question, because to be honest with you, the majority of innovations are small incremental innovations, so evolutionary innovation. And we are currently having some research on how the value framework for small incremental innovation can be presented in a nice way to healthcare payers. But to be honest with you, it's usually the problem with pricing. So if I see innovators who's got small incremental innovation with a huge premium price, something is missing here. It's a good understanding that if you have a small incremental innovation, then the price should not be higher. I recommend if the innovation is small, price parity or even discount price. So just imagine a healthcare payer a situation. Someone presents to you, I'm slightly better, but I don't ask more for this technology. Bingo. You can get the whole market with such a product promise. You should be still very convincing in presenting your case. So you need to know how payers make decisions. So I believe in that situation, the HTA dossier should be relatively simple. Still, it needs to be professional because healthcare payers, if it is rightly presented, that kind of product promise, they are very open to give you a priority, but they need the right way of presenting your product promise.
If I can follow up a little bit on these kind of questions, we speak about pricing based on value. Already are payers to actually pay for value, because even the topic of HTA is something quite new. For instance, here in Portugal, I know that the local competent authority that does the HTA evaluation never did one for medical device. So these methodologies of evaluating value, are the payers ready for this kind of approach, or this kind of approach may be good to plan things ahead, but you'll still find the struggle of them being able to fit on being able to show the value. You can show the value, but there is no probably in the other side able to assess you.
Yeah, this is a very good question also, and let me start a little bit broader. Actually, it's coming back to Nimrod's presentation. So Nimrod considered what can be the first country to launch the product, and obviously Israel could be an easy target. But the pricing considerations were not calculated for Israel, but for the larger markets. Okay, so if it's an easy market, if it's your local market, if it's your home field, then it's not so much needed. But actually, it's very important to consider HTA when you go for the big, large markets, when you have the business creation phase. So the pricing calculation should always be global, unless you really would like to sell the product only in your country, and that's it, because then you may not need it. But my second point is very important. So once I worked at a company, and I just prepared an HTA dossier in a country where it was not needed. Okay, so the health authorities were very much surprised, and we went through like this through the market access process. because what we presented was not expected, and it was so convincing, and it was not mandatory. So we were much ahead of the competitors. So in my early years, I worked in the industry. And when I presented, my boss told me that you've got your salary for the next 10 years, do whatever you want, okay? That was the case in a market where this was not needed, you know. So I can tell you that you work for the future, you work for creating a competitive advantage, you work on how to explain the differential value of your technology in a much better way. So if you make a timely investment into this, even if it's not needed, it can be very convincing. And my other argument is that I often work with clinical professors. So if I tell these professors, sometimes, you know, I'm a professor myself, so maybe I don't hurt that if I say to you that sometimes we call them prima donnas, okay? So, you know, the best cardiologist in the country or the best oncologist in the country. So if I approach these prima donnas with a proposal, professor, are you interested in making a publication on cost effectiveness? The answer is always yes. So clinical professors co-authoring papers on cost effectiveness and health economics, it's very attractive for opinion leaders. And if you have a product in development and you get the support of a big professor, you know, you can be it can be a decisive factor. Okay, there is another question from Nuno.
Actually, it's a follow-up on my point, because indeed, I was mentioning about the HTA more on the medical devices in Portugal, because probably we are on the front line of the HTA assessment for medicines. But in the end, this becomes a little bit this struggle where we already are quite advanced on understanding how to determine the value for medicines. For needs, when we go to new technologies on medical devices, on other things becomes much more difficult, because each product probably needs a different framework and a different setup of things. So this is a clarification. Just
yeah, but actually it's a very good point, because we are involved into a large Horizon 2020 project, which is about HTA methodologies for medical devices. And I very much agree that the innovation cycle of devices is usually faster. But just imagine that you are an innovator, and even you consider not just this cycle, and Nimrod was humble because he already has you know, how to further develop their tools. Just imagine that you have this way of thinking at every innovation cycle, then actually your product promise is much stronger. So again, I know that Portugal has strong health economics, and currently they focus more on pharmaceuticals, but I can tell you that you can get competitive advantage, and if you consider not only the Portuguese market, but markets outside Europe, in certain markets, this is a must. In my country, by the way, you cannot launch new medical devices without HTA assessment, and there are some other countries which moved into this direction. We started pharmaceuticals much earlier, and then I think around 2010, we have now mandatory criteria, cost effectiveness criterion for medical devices as well. So if you consider the global marketplace, just imagine what is your commercial message. Use this diagnostic, which is cost effective, and so on and so on. So you make a publication of it, even if it's not needed. That's actually a very strong message.
If I can pick on you put in your presentation the net present value, and you mentioned something quite relevant to me. It's the marketing costs. I'm like, it's quite used that you, as a startup, you ask for money for the regulatory developments. Let's put the product in the market, and then you forget that you probably need 2 times that money to be able to sell it afterwards. And on this, a lot of the money that is spent on that time usually is developing the value-based data, the value modeling, the pricing modeling to convince for reimbursement, and so on, especially if you're in the pharma medicine device. Does this in some way, looking in this early health technology assessment, is a good way of probably timing the markets and prepare the market, so when you arrive there, you already probably agreed with your payers, with your clients, what will be the methods, what will be the data that you need to be speed up things. So it's not only for you to be prepared, but also to prepare your counterparts on what they will be looking for. Otherwise, at least the examples I see is often you spend a lot of time lobbying in the market for them to understand how this product is really creating value and how you can assess that. And that is the marketing cost of launching a product that often is disregarded. So, but you have a lot of more experience on, does this really early approach work with the payers so you can bring open doors more quickly with them?
I believe it's also an important question that you always have scenarios, and then you need to be fair with yourself that if you go to a direction, you need to calculate with the cost of going to that direction. And maybe just instead of like looking at the numbers, it's far more important to understand. I remember, and Nimrod, maybe you can comment this part as well, that we did a strategic pricing exercise for you, and also the net present value model. And the net present value model is there if you would like to make an investment decision, maybe not today, but maybe in the future. So the tool is always there with you, which can help you to look at the benefits of different scenarios. So it prepares yourself as a CEO of a company to make investment decisions. So we had a lot of discussions with you, Nimrod. What was your experience with these 2 different types of models?
Yeah. So regarding the net present value, we put assumptions according to the 3 markets I talked about. For each market alone, we could calculate net present value according to this market alone. So it sums to different figures, but when combined, it sums to another higher figure that we can introduce to investors, and as part of the due diligence. Okay, we did this. This is why I'm asking you this valuation. It's not just blowing the finger in the air and giving a number, but it was calculating according some real assumptions. Of course, investors always will like to invest in Microsoft in the price it was sold in 74, but today. But this is a convincing story. The other story is the pricing of the justification of our pricing. So we gave a number, and we started negotiating with different payers. And the question always was, okay, there are the clinical evidence, we understand the problem, we see the importance, but what are the real numbers of your savings? And then this model allowed us to show them that we can even charge around $550 in the United States and still be beneficial to the market, to the payer. And by asking 150, we are much better to the local economy, to the payers. They are winning a lot of money, and it's a very good, I will not say teaser, but it's an influencing evidence to come with and to show right away that we thought about it, we did the work, we did the health economics. It's not just blowing figures that one can agree and the other cannot agree. And to disagree with this model, it's very hard. I can share the Excel sheet, and you can understand what enormous work Zoltan and his team did. So,
well, just to tell you that we worked on this product on this project for 1 month. And we developed this economic model based on the assumptions that Nimrod told us.
So you can see here all the assumptions, okay, in the input sheet, all the different conditions we're checking, and according to its prevalence, and it was calculated in percentage. Here we entered the value of the scan as we figured it, and then I will not dive into this because we have less than 15 minutes, but you can understand that putting all these figures in was enormous work, and eventually what we got was this model, these numbers, pointing out the ICER, pointing out the quali, okay? And although quali is quite close, the ICER is in favor for us. And then we could run other assumptions by entering different figures and get into the conclusion that we can even charge $550 and still show good
Cost
figures,
effectiveness, yes.
good effectiveness.
Okay. So, thank you. Thank you for this. We need to jump into our next speaker, but that is quite another practical example of this application. So we have with us João Quintas, that is a researcher at Instituto Pedro Nunes, so one of the IT Health partners in Portugal. So they benefit from Zoltan also on this amazing knowledge, and they put together this expertise also on the project that they developed, the ROSE project. And we have here João Quintas with us to share a little bit their project, how they use it in some way, the early health technology assessment in probably a more early stage project than this one, but still how this can be applied not only for startups, but also research projects or innovation projects in academia. So João, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Miguel, and thank you for the invitation. Let me share the screen. Okay. Yeah, actually, the two previous presentations were very interesting. What I will show you, it's probably in an earlier stage, as Miguel was referring to, but we are progressing, and what I would like to share with you basically is the journey, right? So the process on how we are doing this, and at the same time, as our team at IPN, as we are getting these competencies to become experts in early HDA, at least in Portugal, and contributing at least also for the European side. So I see that most of the attendees is Portuguese, so probably you will be familiar with the Institute Pedro Nunes and where we are based. So we are based in Coimbra. We are a research and technology organization that is basically bridging the two worlds of academy and in industry. And I belong to the team of Automatics Lab, and I'm currently the principal manager of the health related projects. And I was involved from the very beginning in this project that we called ROST, that basically stands for robot sensing teleechography. So this was a national project that was funded by Portugal 2020 in the Central region. So we brought together four organizations. We had a company that is Sensing Future Technologies that is incubated, currently being accelerated at IPN Accelerator. We had the University of Coimbra as bringing the invention and the knowledge coming from the academia. We had an end user that was initially Ideal Med, that then translated, they were acquired by Lush Saud. So we are working together with them. And finally, IPN appears here to complete the consortium and putting the glue in all of this work. So to share a bit with you our journey, and this is somewhat related with maybe some aspects of HTA that basically relates to the iterative validation of the needs of the market and what could be interesting in terms of innovation and what could have potential to become a disruptive or revolutionary innovation. So in the very beginning, prior to 2015, we identified together with the University of Coimbra and the Institute of Systems and Robotics a piece of technology that was being developed by one of the groups that was essentially working on teleoperated robotics, and they were using this to perform or to apply this to perform teleultrasounds. So we identified this as a promising technology, and based on this identification, we started contacting and putting together a team that could mature this technology and transform it into a commercial product. So we started doing this by 2015, as I mentioned. So initially, we tried to go for an European consortium and send it to an FTI proposal. It was not the right call, so the proposal was rejected. We reformulated not only the consortium but fine-tuned some of the ideas and the concept. We tried to align it with a better screening of the needs of the market. So by then we started to perform the very baby steps of an early HTA. So not going fully fledged into it, the economics part, but at least validating what is on demand and what makes sense to create as an innovation. So based on that, in 2016, we got the project approved at national level. So we start working with this consortium. And we have been working since then until today, which we currently finalized the ROSE project, but we have now a quite mature technology asset that we are keep developing and including this technology even in not only in European projects in H 2020, but also exploiting these in different applications that we didn't foresee at the first time within EIT Health calls. So to share with you a little bit on how this journey has been developed throughout the rows. From our experience, the thing that worked best here was following an iterative approach. So not only from the technology perspective in terms of implementation of the technology itself, but everything that surrounds it. So it doesn't, you cannot have a team of engineers working alone. Otherwise, you go into a big risk of not delivering what your end users are expecting or what the market is willing to adopt. So from the beginning, we basically adopted an iterative process that covered these 4 main lines of action. So understanding what are the user needs, then translating this into a concept that would be implemented by the technical partners, and ultimately it would be validated not only in terms of the technical perspective, but also from the user adoption and the market perspective. To give you an idea of how this iterative process would look like, so we really start at the beginning in an observational phase. So we went to the clinician's office and try to understand what they are doing and what could be improved or optimized, or just asking, okay, you have this piece of technology that you use every day. What you dislike? What are the functionalities that you use more times? What is cumbersome for you to use, and so on. So this was very, very aligned with just an observational study that would basically rise the needs and what could be improved into in our system. Based on that, we started developing the concept. So for you, you will see in some minutes a video that is putting everything together. But because we are developing a teleoperated twin robotic system that is used as a tool to perform tele ultrasound, and this is a diagnostics tool. And we had to implement a series of functionalities that would make sure that the process is replicable, it's secure, it's robust, and the clinicians can perform an equivalent examination as they would be performing face-to-face with the patient. So this involves having a smaller version of the robot that is on the patient side that I will show you in a short moment. And this is providing the clinicians force feedback and a total control of the probe, not only the position and orientation of the probe, but also the forces that they are applying in the patient, and also controlling at the same time the ultrasound image. So we were involving the clinicians from the beginning across these iterations. So after we have this, so what you are seeing there, it's one version of the patient side where you see the table there where the patient can lie down and have the examination, and at the bottom you see the smaller version which corresponds to the clinician side. But this is representing one of the actions that we did in the project, and this was really already in the direction of testing the market. So after we reach a maturity level that was comfortable for us, we decided to be present in RSNA conference. That is basically one of the main radiologist conference worldwide. This is happening in North America and United States. And we went there with the system, and we were exposing ourselves to potential buyers, to potential users, to potential commercial partners, and start screening their opinions on their willingness to buy the solution, how they would price the solution. Of course, we had with a price in mind. We were basically comparing ourselves with the current with the traditional solutions, but soon we start to understand that this is not a comparable solution. Sometimes we got an answer that okay, for what you are offering, the price is too high. You may be considering to revise your price. Also, we received some feedback that the potential buyers would like to change the probes that they are using. So this made us rethink a lot of our initial assumptions, and basically now we are taking this after project process to have our company that was partner in the project to think about these issues and to create a proposal that could be accepted by the market. Just a retrospective on some of the technical work. So basically, you see at the left how we started in terms of ergonomics of the smaller version of the robot, and we were iterating until we have a final version that was acceptable by the clinicians, and basically all the affordances and the way this was being designed was having the clinicians' opinions into consideration. And from the patient side, basically we started from when we start in 2017 until when we left. Basically, it's a literally shift of 180 degrees, because we really started by positioning the robot on the wrong side, and then we clearly understood with the clinicians' help that we were doing this the opposite way. So this is a clear example that you need to have your customer and your end user involved. Otherwise, you could end up having a 3 years or 4 years or 5 years of development doing the wrong thing. So this is also basically, as a medical device, we have to be very aware of the conformity assessment, and this is related with the medical device certification process, which in our case, before we go into the market, we need to have this in place. In our case, from the 4 possible models, we selected the conformity assessment approach, which is based on quality management system and the assessment of the technical documentation, which we have been preparing. So basically, we are just about in that place. So finalizing the research part, we are conducting the clinical validation trials, and of course this will also influence the entire way we can present ourselves to the market. Of course, this although it's not exactly what you have been seeing in the previous 2 presentations, it's one of the building blocks that would influence the overall process of performing your calculations and the process of HTA in general. So this is concluding my presentation. I will just leave you with a short video of the project, and I'm sure that you will understand better what we have been developing. And after the video, I will happy to answer your questions. So just click OK. I guess you are hearing the sound.
My name is Philippe Kazerwabs. I'm one of the investigators from the medical counterpart of this project. And our idea when we started and we began the project was essentially to be able to tackle with the lack of radiologists and to offer a simplified solution for sonography made abroad, even at remote distances.
The force feedback system provides accurate haptic perception and allows physicians to safely distinguish between the different anatomical tissues. The interface is extremely user-friendly and intuitive and provides all the basic characteristics you would find on the more traditional ultrasound system.
The technical compounds and the technical capabilities of the system is really very high, and we are able to manipulate the probe as if we are practically manipulating the probe in a real patient.
The system allows the physician to perform a wide variety of movements, including fine movements one would do on a traditional ultrasound.
So I strongly believe that this application and this system will change the paradigm of performing sonography, since there is no need to have a direct relationship between patient and doctor. Also, the doctor can communicate freely with the patient. He can see the patient through a dedicated system of video, and it's very easy to perform the examination.
I think that would be all. Oops. No. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, João. We don't have much time or already over time, but probably just making a quick question to you. I think it's interesting, this approach of quantifying things ahead of time, understanding the real value in the end of the project. But I know a lot of innovators that told me in the healthcare sector, if they knew so much when they began, they would never have begun. And probably I can make this question to you, João, and probably also to Nimrod. Does this in the end help you to be more motivated with your project, because you can see in the end, quantify the value in the end, and know the steps ahead? Yeah,
for sure. I would say for sure. And this is always like the example of Microsoft that they were giving. If at the beginning of the project, if I knew how long or how much we would progress within this time frame, I would be even more motivated. And for sure, some things would be made different, of course. But I think that's the thing, right? It's a learning process. But I would not be demotivated at all. because of this. It's being a very interesting journey. There is a long still road to go, but we need to be bold and to endure the run. So.
I would
How about you,
to,
Nimrod? How does this help you to?
Yeah, I can compare it to raising children. It's like, you do the mistake with the first one, maybe with the second one. Well, this is my third, the third company I'm running from scratch, trying to avoid many of the mistakes I've done in the past. It's challenging. It's a roller coaster, ups and downs each day or each week. It's a money depressive condition all time. But as you can see, it's my third time, so I wouldn't do it, do anything else.
Okay, thank
and
you.
There is a huge satisfaction when you see something created from scratch and eventually find its way to the market. Huge satisfaction.
Okay, so thank you to all. Thank you, João. Thank you, Nimrod. Thank you, Zoltan and Thomas. Moving to you, Patricia, to end this this session. But thank you to all our speakers. It was amazing content that will be with us for more time. So we'll be sharing the video and the presentations if all agree in the end. So we can reach to more people so they know how they could plan the road ahead. So
Sure.
To you, Patricia.
So just before we close this webinar, I leave you with the QR code I think you're already seeing that will take you to the webpage where you can find more information about the upcoming webinars of this series. You may also follow us through the LinkedIn or Twitter accounts. And next week, we'll be hearing about the healthcare sales and marketing at 2:30 p.m. So hope to see you there. And thank you once again for attending this webinar and have a nice week.